Well, Vince,
Is it
are you
time?
ready for rapid fire?
Say it's time, baby.
It is time. It
All
is
right.
time.
I'm
I'm going
ready.
to start off. I'm going to start off with a listener question for rapid
Ooh.
fire before we get into the topics we were going to
Okay.
get into. I'll just
Let's
start
do
with
this.
this. What's this about Luke Fickell turning down Notre Dame before hiring Coach Freeman? It's all over the Cincinnati podcast, I'm being told.
Okay. Of course it's all over the Cincinnati podcast because they want themselves to feel good about themselves in that the reason that Fickell didn't come to Notre Dame is that he wanted to stay at Cincinnati and go to the New Year the playoff, right?
Right.
That's what Cincinnati fans want to believe. The truth, what actually occurred was that Luke Fickell really wanted the Notre Dame job, but he was a distant second place to Marcus Freeman. Okay. That's where the erroneous reports came that Luke Fickell was going to get the Notre Dame job. Remember when that was all going down? I want to say it was Dennis Dodd that had it out there that Fickell was going to Notre Dame. Where do you think he got that information? Luke Fickell or his camp, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
how that got out there. That wasn't coming from Notre Dame. Luke Fickell was never a finalist for this job. If you want to say finalist, was he like a top 5, top 3?
I was going to say,
okay.
like, what was a finalist
He
when
was
they
never
didn't
in the
really,
league.
like who
Right.
they talked to in a 4-day span,
Right.
And
I know that Jack reached out to numerous people, and he probably did reach out and gauge interest, right? But once they zeroed in on Marcus Freeman, it was game over. Like they did not offer him the job. He did not have an opportunity to turn down the job.
Correct.
So he wanted the Notre Dame job. Now, once he knew he wasn't going to get the Notre Dame job, it was, I'm staying in Cincinnati. There was that because he didn't want to go anywhere else.
We're going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And yeah.
He changed it pretty quickly, which, okay, that's what you do. I have no problem with that. He wanted the Notre Dame job. They didn't want him.
Now,
Okay.
This is valid, Derek. And again, this has been a year ago, and
that's easy.
I think that you could have contained that while, he was in the running for a playoff. He wasn't just going to, I don't think he was ever going to bail on Cincinnati the way Brian Kelly bailed on Notre Dame. Because again, remember, this was before the conference championship games and all that stuff. He was interested. To what extent, how serious it got, any of that. I think there was more interest on his part than there was on Notre Dame's part.
Correct.
And probably just the best way to leave it.
As far as, would you stick with Cincinnati? I mean, if he was going to take the Notre Dame job, I'm sure they would have let him coach the Cincinnati game, number one. Number two, you also have to be an adult, and you have to think long-term versus short-term, right? Short-term, Cincinnati's in the playoff. Did anybody really think that Cincinnati had a shot at winning the national championship last year? Because if you did, you're one of the only people that's not wearing a Bearcat uniform, okay?
I was going to say, don't talk to Cincinnati fans like that.
So that's fine. But at the same time, where can you have more long-term success, Cincinnati or Notre Dame?
Yes.
Long-term versus short-term, people. Come on.
I'm a little surprised in this case, though, that he's going to Wisconsin and not staying at Cincinnati, since Cincinnati is getting ready to make the move to the Big 12 here. And I thought that kind of played into it as well in the fact that he was ultimately still there, but apparently not.
That move, that happened quick. I mean,
yeah.
Granted, Wisconsin has been without a head coach for a while, so I'm sure there had been conversations, but man, they didn't waste any time naming him the head coach after the regular season was over, did they?
No.
Wow.
Not at all. Not at all. All right, Vince, Marcus Freeman talked last week about how there's a different feel to the Notre Dame USC game when it's played at the end of the season in Los Angeles compared to when the Trojans visit Notre Dame in the middle of the season. Do you buy or sell making Notre Dame USC the last game of the regular season every year?
It's a huge buy for me. And I've talked about it a little bit on this show. Not this show, one of the shows. I don't know. I've talked to my laptop about it before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You spoke to the camera and
said. So with USC going to the Big Ten, that's going to shuffle some of the, the way the schedules work out, right?
Yep.
The way the Big Ten operates, at least right now. Now, it may change when they start bringing in new people, right? But the way it works out right now, for the most part, All the non-conference stuff is at the beginning of the season. Now, you could, if you're USC, you go in and you say, we want this game at the end of the year every year. Then that's fine. Then that's how they're going to schedule things, just like Ohio State, Michigan's the last game of the season. There's ways that you can make this happen, right? I don't think that they're going to be able to do the middle of the season, end of the season, middle of the season, end of the season thing that they've been doing this whole time. I personally would love to have this game at the end of the year every single year. And especially with the fact that USC is on the incline. I think Notre Dame is on the incline.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have two elite teams facing off with each other the last game of the season, that's awesome.
Exactly.
I want that all day long. People are like,
exactly.
well, then you got too much on the line at the end. It's a 12-team playoff, baby.
I love it.
You're playing for seeding,
yeah.
number one, as well as bragging rights.
Would you rather have Notre Dame playing USC every year at the end of the schedule, or continue this? Oh, we're going to Northern California now. We're going to play Stanford in a completely meaningless game.
Yes.
If you had Notre Dame USC at the end of the season every year, that becomes part. It's right there. It's already a great rivalry, but I think it would become even more magnified in the same realm, especially now that USC is going to be playing in a Midwestern Conference, against Michigan and Ohio State. It puts it right up there in relevance. It jacks the relevance of this rivalry up even more, because you play it in the mid, like when they come to South Bend, when they come to Notre Dame, and you're playing in the middle of October, then it's like, there's some cachet to it, but it's not nearly, there's not nearly the meaning to it like when it's the last game of the regular season, because there might be implications for one team, there might be implications for both teams. And as you said, with both teams on an upward track, there's more likely than not going to be playoff implications for both of these teams for the next several years.
Absolutely.
So I think it would be great. I think it would be awesome. Because of what you said, because USC is going to the Big Ten, things are going to have to get reconfigured anyway. If Notre Dame wants to keep Stanford, then just make Stanford home and home in mid-October every year, because it doesn't deserve near the stature that it gets right now with this alternating in November thing.
And, there's going to be the UCLA USC game, right? That's going to be something that they're going to play every year, but that's now a conference game anyway, and it will continue to be if UCLA follows through and comes to the Big Ten. One of the posters says USC won't go for that. Okay, I get that to a degree. First of all, USC is not going to be the one to say we're done with this rivalry.
But they're not going to have a choice about if they have to go to Columbus in November or Ann Arbor or East Lansing or wherever.
There's too many cold weather teams that you're going to have to go to.
They're going to have to go on the road at least twice as of right now in the month of November to play Big Ten teams.
Exactly. So
there's no reason not to anymore.
And the Big Ten's going to have a big say about what their schedule looks like. A big say. But the Big Ten is going to have way more say over your schedule than the Pac-12 did, because you're not the big fish anymore. You're a big enough fish that they wanted you in, but you're not the big fish. You're already taking a back seat to Michigan and Ohio State, right? So you're not going to have the say that you think you're going to have coming into the Big Ten. I firmly believe that. So they're going to have to play someplace in the snow. And I'm all about that being South Bend, at least every other year.
I completely agree.
We'll see.
I think it would be great, again, for the rivalry. I think it would be great for college football. And I can't remember if RJ Abadia, and if you listen to the whole thing the other day, he was telling me, and I can't remember if he told me this before or during the interview, because we talked about a few things before the interview. We hit the record button, but he was saying that the reason USC and Stanford have to play in September every year right now is because of that alternating November schedule that they each have with Notre Dame, because every other year, each of them have to step out of Pac-12 play at the end of the season. And so because of that, the Pac-12 has made them play one of the earliest conference games every year in September because of their, now again, that's going to change because USC is pulling the plug and jumping out of there. So,
right. They're probably not going to play Stanford anymore. Lucky them.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, fill in the blank. kind of on the same topic here, a little bit anyway. The Thanksgiving college football schedule filled with rivalry games. Notre Dame, USC, Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, the Iron Bowl, Alabama, Auburn. But if the college football playoff expands, there's a good chance that all these rivalry games are going to have to move off the Thanksgiving schedule, basically be played at least a week earlier to accommodate the playoffs. And they'd probably be replaced by conference championship games Thanksgiving weekend. So that would be blank if that happens.
It'd be unfortunate, but it wouldn't be the end of the world because for me, that's must-see TV anyway, regardless of what weekend it's on. Now, it's nicer that it's Thanksgiving weekend because you've got more days and you can kind of spread those games out. Like we had a couple on Friday night and, you can spread them out a little bit more. And so that's always nice. I'm still going to watch all of those games if it was the weekend before as opposed to Thanksgiving week. So it loses a little bit of its luster, but not a whole lot because I'm still going to watch it. And the conference game, unfortunately, so for this season, for example, so if we took this season and we put it, a couple of years from now, and you look at these conference championship games, which one of these conference championship games are you really looking forward to watching? Because none of them really light my fire, if I'm being honest.
They're all anticlimactic.
They are. I mean, do I want to see Georgia win big? Yeah, I do. But I don't think the outcome is in any kind of flux. Right? I don't think the outcome's in flux in the Pac-12. I don't think the outcome's in flux in the ACC. Those games just don't, the rivalry games are more exciting. That's better football, I think, than some of these championship games.
Yeah, and that's, Chi-Town says he's sticking with tradition, and that's kind of, part of what's going to stink is you're going to, to me, one of the bigger downfalls of the expansion of the playoff. And really, it's not just the expansion of the playoff, but realignment has done it as well. Like a lot of the traditions and rivalries are going away. And again, that's why I think it would be cool, going back to the Notre Dame USC thing, to have that part of the whatever tradition you can create, that's always going to be at the end of the season, just like Michigan and Ohio State, just like Alabama and Auburn. Where that happens to fall on the calendar, I think is really kind of irrelevant. It's cool right now to have it Thanksgiving weekend. You've got the extra day, Black Friday and all that stuff. And obviously you're off on Thursday, but that's still more an NFL day. But it's it's kind of cool to have it that weekend just because you've got a longer holiday, a longer time off and all that kind of stuff. It's cool to have it. If you bump it up a week, it's still going to be there. It just kind of gets more compacted, I guess. You can't throw a few of them on Friday. LSU Arkansas used to be one of those rivalries as well, and that's kind of been pushed aside as well. After the SEC has continued to expand, and that used to be played on Friday not that long ago. But you still get to play them, so I think that's cool. But so it'd be a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, you still get the games, and that's all that matters.
Because right now, if this was an odd-numbered year, right? Notre Dame's playing Stanford on rivalry weekend.
Yeah.
Stanford is not Notre Dame's rival. That is...
See, and again, it's Notre Dame, Stanford, Notre Dame, USC versus you've got Michigan, Ohio State going on on the same day. What game stands out more to you if you could have it every year on the same? If you could have Notre Dame, USC every year at the end of the night after you started the day with Michigan, Ohio State.
Sign me up every year for that.
Every lose, baby.
Year. Yeah, every year.
Scale of 1 to 10. What chance do you give Caleb Williams to win the Heisman?
About a 9.5. And I'm only putting it at 9.5 in case he breaks his leg and somebody does something amazing this weekend. But the problem is his biggest competition, they're done for the year. They're done. There's nothing else for them to do, right? Alabama, done. Ohio State, done. There's nothing else they can do to add to their Heisman hopes.
That's true.
Caleb Williams, number one, had the last say on Saturday night, and he had quite the statement. Mm-hmm. And he's got another say that he's going to have in the Pac-12 championship this weekend. So I don't see how he can't get it. And it's not because he necessarily went out and earned it, but the other guys just took such a step back, in my opinion, that it's like he's kind of the last man standing. Hey, Caleb, don't screw it up, dude. And he went out and beat Notre Dame. So that was his Heisman moment. I don't see how he doesn't win.
No, I completely agree. There's a guy who won the Heisman back in the 60s. His name is Roger Staubach.
Yeah.
And the kind of stuff Caleb Williams was doing was like Staubach-esque, like the whole running around and scrambling and, eyes in the back of your head and all this different stuff, keeping plays alive. It's like Notre Dame's secondary played about as well as they could play, but Caleb Williams just managed to keep plays alive all night. Like, I don't want to completely rob USC's offensive line of credit because it is a better offensive line than it used to be. And they did do a pretty good job of protecting most of the night. But Caleb Williams definitely makes that line look even better than it is with his ability to do all this stuff, to run, 60 yards all over the field and then find a guy downfield and hit the open man after the play is broken down 10 seconds later.
No doubt. I mean, he pulled some Houdini stuff numerous times, right? And we told you guys going in that was going to happen. Like, he was going to do this stuff. And you got to tip your cap, and it is what it is. And he made some very good reads in the run game and was able to score touchdowns doing that. I mean, he only had 35 yards rushing, but they were some impactful 35 yards, Sean. So, he did what he needed to do. He wasn't amazing against Notre Dame, but he was pretty stinking good. And he was able to get himself out of trouble more times than he was in trouble. And that's the sign of a really good quarterback.
I know.
It just is. And if they were playing with their backup quarterback, Notre Dame wins this game going away.
For sure.
That's the difference. He was the difference in this game, though. He was the difference.
Yep. I give him a 9 to win the Heisman. The only chance that he doesn't, I think, is if he would have a bad game in the Pac-12 championship game and Drake May plays out of his mind. Like, he's probably lost it the last 2 weeks, losing to Georgia Tech and NC State, but he's going to play Clemson. So he's going to have his own moment, for maybe a chance to put, his last little finishing touch. But, again, I would give Caleb Williams the 9. I would put the 1 on Drake May ahead of CJ Stroud at this point, just because May has one more shot, to have some kind of big Heisman moment of his own.
That's fair.
And it's a big if Williams would struggle in the
against a big time opponent like Clemson. Yeah. I mean,
right.
So he's got an opportunity. You're right. I just think that's an awfully big hill to climb right now, and that's it's 9-1 for you. So I mean, I'm not saying that you're saying that Drake May's going to win it,
right?
But I think the problem for Drake May in even moving forward to next year is his pieces around him just aren't good enough, in my opinion, for him to win the Heisman.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, more often than not, the Heisman winner comes as the best quarterback, or, the quarterback of one of the best teams. And I don't see North Carolina ever being that.
No, I concur. Fill in the blank. Speaking of Williams, it's blank that he painted FND on his fingernails during Saturday's game against the Irish. Of course, he didn't just write F, he actually spelled out the word.
All
Use
4.
your imagination if you need to. But
all 4 right there.
What do you think of that, Vince?
Well, I think a lot of things about this. Number one, to me, to Vince, it's incredibly immature and kind of stupid to paint your nails. But if that's what motivates you, then
supposedly he does this with all opponents. Like he did it with UCLA the week before, kind of thing.
And that's okay. I mean, if that's what motivates you, if painting your nails motivates you, then I guess peace be with you. That's fine.
Like, and get in the huddle and I'm going to look at my nails.
Right, exactly. I think the funniest part about this whole thing is how upset it got Notre Dame fans.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, guys, if you don't like it, and I realize the fans aren't on the field, you don't like it, shut him up. Like, make him play bad. I don't, who cares? It's not, just because it happened to be on his nails. Guys write stuff on their eye black. They write stuff on their shoes. Baseball players write stuff on the bottom of their bill, right? That's what I would have my team do all the time at the beginning of the season. Write down a personal goal and a team goal. Write it on your bill so you see it all the time, right? Is it silly that he puts it on his fingernails? Yeah, it is. But who cares, man? Who cares?
And that's what it comes down to. If super zoomed in lens hadn't caught it,
Right.
then no one would be talking. It's like so minuscule. Of course, nobody saw it like during the broadcast, right? I don't think they zoomed in on it during the broadcast. This was all still photos and stuff that showed up afterwards. I think it's a little stupid, but again, at the same time, like, when I played back in high school and, would write things on my cleats or whatever, I didn't write any expletives.
Vanities. Yeah, exactly. So that part's immature. Like, that part's immature to me. He could have put beat Notre Dame or, something along those lines. I mean,
right. And I was thinking, like, what did Notre Dame ever do to Caleb Williams before the other, and like they didn't do anything to him.
They didn't recruit him. Okay. So he didn't get recruited. Okay. Should Notre Dame have recruited him after Saturday night? Yeah. They should have recruited him.
Yeah.
Just another thing for me to not like Brian Kelly about. Okay. You didn't recruit him. Okay. I mean, Notre Dame didn't recruit a lot of guys that are really good. So, I don't know. I find it incredibly immature, but I find it more immature that Notre Dame fans are upset about it. How about that?
Yeah. And see, this guy has got it in his handle, FUSC ND-USC. So there you go.
I love it.
Okay, fill in the blank. There was a lot of anti-Herbstreit Fowler stuff, both during and after Saturday night's game. Biggest issue you had with them was blank.
Well, I was in the watch party, obviously, and
which I forgot when I wrote this question, but
which is totally cool. Those guys in general, okay, so I'm going to go from a generality standpoint with this because I didn't hear their commentary, right? But from a generality standpoint, they're going to push whatever national storyline that they think they need to push. And that was clearly Caleb Williams on Saturday night. And they were pushing him like crazy from what I understand, right? But you know what? They backed the right dog in the fight. I mean, I guess I don't really have a huge issue with it, even though it came off as incredibly homerish. But that's what they do. Every time Notre Dame played Clemson, they were all over Trevor Lawrence. That's just what they do. People need to not get their, what's in a bunch.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like we're starting to, all it took was saying their name and 3, 2, 1. Here come all the people sounding off. One, this is just like the Joe Buck hate, right? Because like you're watching a World Series game. You've got the Indians and the Cubs. When the Cubs are winning and the Cubs are making plays, Indians fans think that Joe Buck is cheering for the Cubs. When the shoe is on the other foot, Cubs fans think that he's cheering for the Indians. If Notre Dame would have been winning and they would have been talking up Drew Pine, you'd have no problem with anything that they said. So that's part of it. You're disgruntled, you're ticked off, your team is losing, and so every little thing, it's like Fowler is cheering more for USC. He's more excited for USC than he is for Notre Dame, and it's like, okay, I get it. You're ticked off, your team's losing. Here's the thing I had the biggest problem with, and it came down to one thing, because again, like the pass to Mario Williams, when Williams scrambles all over the place and he hits Williams, and then Williams jumps up and he does the first down point. Feller's like, oh, and he converts the fourth down when he's like 8 yards short.
Yeah,
the first down. It wasn't because he was cheering for Williams. I think he just got caught up and he saw Williams do the point, and rather than actually look at where the yard markers are, he fell for that. Which is an issue. It's you still have to be aware of what's going on the field. But I think that was why he got fooled by Williams doing that. My biggest thing was the whole Brandon Joseph on the punt return, because Herbstreit, they diagrammed like, and Herbstreit was perfectly right. Like if Joseph, instead of fair catching that punt, if he takes off to his right, he might go the distance, because as Herbstreit said, all he's got is offensive linemen to beat on that side of the field, but instead he fair catches it. But then where Herbstreit stuck his foot in his mouth is when he says, well, I can forgive that because Joseph's not the regular punt return man. Well,
that's not doing your homework.
Did you do any preparation for this game? Because all you've got to do is look at a stat sheet and go, Brandon Joseph has 18 punt returns this season. Matt Salerno has 4. I mean, did you just stick in game film from the last couple weeks and you saw this other guy back there on punt returns? So Brandon Joseph's not the regular punt returner. That's my biggest issue, is the lack of preparation put into it. And like, is the fact that he's doing game day and an NFL game on Thursday affecting that? You know, I think that was a legitimate question that maybe people had about it when he gets this job doing NFL games on Thursday, because you cannot, when you're doing you're doing the national game of the week every week. And there are a lot of things they're going to slide by some people, you know, like USC fans probably, you know, that went right over their head, you know, unless they're really paying attention. They don't know who Notre Dame's regular punt returner is. That's a huge thing, though.
It is.
Saying Brandon Joseph has been the main punt returner.
He's been good at it.
He's been injured for a couple weeks.
He's been good at it too.
Yeah.
So
the lack of preparation is the biggest thing.
Right.
You can, all that other stuff, it's whatever. Again, it's like you get disgruntled as a fan and you're watching the game, and you know, some of those things bug you a little bit more. But the lack of preparation by a national guy, like Herbstreit is basically supposed to be the preeminent college football analyst. He's got to know that. He just does.
Yep, I agree completely. And
I'm sure he'd tell you that too. But
Ben Tarnowski, I just had his up there. He did the Ohio State game where Brandon Joseph was the punt returner.
Good call.
So that's a really good call, Ben. You're 100% right. That's just lack of preparation, and that's weak. It's weak, you know. And I need to go back and watch that again because somebody said that the gunner purposely ran past Joseph because he fair caught it, so that he was down there prepared to make the tackle, but then ran past him. So, like, I don't know if it was as obvious. I don't know. I'd have to see it. I'm just saying what somebody said.
Again, like the first half, when I was watching it live, couldn't hear any audio because, you know, we were in a little bar down there. Second half, they sounded like chipmunks on the TV because of the bad feed that I had. And I've watched, you know, some of it since I've been home, but I just got home last night. I've watched some of it today. I haven't watched the whole thing, so I didn't get to that point. So I'd have to go back and watch that as well. Okay, ACC Big Ten Basketball Challenge is going to come to an end after this year. SEC Big 12 Challenge is also going to end. The ACC actually put out an official release about this today. So starting next year, we're going to get the ACC SEC Basketball Challenge. Do you buy or sell the move, Vince?
I sell it. It's terrible because I don't SEC basketball, like SEC basketball. So now I'm an ACC guy because I follow Notre Dame. Notre Dame is in the ACC, so I'm putting my ACC hat on, right? ACC, pretty darn good basketball conference normally, right? The SEC, Big Ten, usually a pretty good basketball conference.
Yeah.
Why would you not want the two preeminent basketball conferences playing against each other? That was the whole point of doing that in the first place. So you're going to drop the Big Ten, which frankly has been better than the ACC, I think, top to bottom for the past couple of years anyway. And now you're going to hook up with the SEC? Like I'm sorry, that's a downgrade in matchups to me.
I think big picture for the ACC, I agree with what you're saying. From a Notre Dame perspective, though, in the games that we're, you know, it's like, how many more times does Notre Dame have to play Michigan State, Illinois, or Iowa? You know, it's like there was never any variation in who their opponents were. So like from purely a Notre Dame perspective, I don't mind seeing this go away. But you're right. Like in terms of overall matchups, ACC Big Ten are two of the better college basketball conferences year in and year out. And to see it go away from that aspect, you know, it's like you get North Carolina, Indiana, you know, those kind of things. You know, it's like, there's a lot better matchups. The SEC, as you said, is not necessarily known for and I guess there's going to be a Big Ten. I can't remember if there's going to be a Big 10, Big 12 thing or not. But
they're just all switching teams, essentially. Like, I don't know. None of those matchups are going to get me all that excited. I guess the only one would be if Kentucky. Notre Dame got to play Kentucky. Okay.
Yeah, but still, like even that, we've seen that one. You know, we still see that one over the years.
Absolutely. So you want to see Ole Miss? You want to see Florida? Like I don't know. None of those just really do anything for me.
No, you're absolutely right. Other than Kentucky, I mean, who's going to move the needle for you now? When Now, like when Texas and Oklahoma come in, maybe that becomes a little bit more
but
attractive.
still not as much as the Big Ten. Because at least the Big Ten, you have regional ties, like because we're in Big Ten country, right? So, you're going to fill up a stadium a lot more, an arena a lot more readily because you're going to get some opposing fans. Maybe people don't like that, but I like a full arena when I go to games. You know what I mean? And I'm going to go to the game on Wednesday night against Michigan State. It's probably going to be full, and it's going to be a good crowd until the beatdown begins. But
you going to do a little game recap after that?
Maybe.
All right. I'm counting on you.
Oh, sure.
Bonus question, Vince.
Yes.
What's the better Thanksgiving leftover, turkey or stuffing?
Stuffing. Well, you're talking about leftovers. See, you can do a lot with turkey, though. You can go with a sandwich route. You can just go the open-faced route.
Yep.
There's a lot of things you can do, and if you don't warm up the stuffing properly, then it's kind of gooey, and that's where I would have an issue. So
I've got the answer for you.
What do you got, brother?
I want everyone to take notes on this. Okay. 2 years ago, I bought this. It's a little mini. It's only like this big around. It's a waffle maker, right? So little mini waffle maker. You take your stuffing, you shove it in the waffle maker for about 5, however long it takes. Gets nice and crispy on the outside.
Ooh.
So you're making a stuffing waffle, right? And like you were just talking about, it's too, it can get gooey and stuff like that. So you've got a little waffle then with nice, warm, crispy goodness on the outside. And then if you want, you can make 2 little waffles, or you can just cut that in half. You shove your turkey in there. If you like your cranberry sauce,
that was a trick question.
Gravy. So the answer is the stuffing, because to me, you can do more with the stuffing. But again, that's like the perfect way to make your post-Thanksgiving sandwiches with the stuffing waffle or the waffle stuffing, whatever you want to call it. Trust me on this. It is a pro move.
It is a pro move.
I just had one today because we didn't get the full, we were gone.
Yeah.
We got Bohemian Thanksgiving down there, which
that was like, yeah.
But my in-laws and Jesse were up here, so they left us some of their leftovers.
Nice.
And so I did the waffle stuffing. Boom. You guys, gals, you're not going to be disappointed if you try this. I guarantee you. If you are a stuffing person, you're not.
I am a stuffing person, but we went out to eat, so I don't have any leftovers, unfortunately.
Yeah. We used to do that too, and we went, you know what? Like, even though it's a pain in the butt cooking all that food for just 3 or 4 people or whatever, it's like, if you want the leftovers, you got to do it.
I get it. Yeah. I get it.
All right. Well, tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary. BK Day.
Oh, is it really?
It is.
Wow.
Tomorrow is 1 year, BK Day. Jesse and I will get into that on tomorrow's show.
Nice.
So we'll have it for you. All right.
Nice. I like that. I knew it was. I actually thought about that today because it was right after the Stanford game last year. And I remember thinking to myself, what day was that? And now I know. Tomorrow.
Is there upon further review tonight, Vince?
The plan was to have it tonight, but I have not spoken with Brian all day. So I assume yes, but I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest. I just like to be honest with the people.
All right.
I'm not sure.
Hit the like button on your way out if you would. Subscribe, rate, review on the podcast. The IB Nation is growing larger and larger every day. Appreciate you. All right, Vince, I will talk to you later.
Yes, sir.
We'll talk to we're getting out just in time because the porn bots are showing up. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Come on.
IB Nation Sports Talk.